Hello, Americans, YouTubers, and YouTube it's yourself. I swear to God to tell the whole truth and nothing but the truth. Former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, has a whole bunch of recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed collusion slash S with the people from all the countries in the news. They have drugs and medicines crimes, collusions. They have the agencies that are countering drugs crimes. They have putting the families that work at hospitals, triages with mental health side. They're putting fake transcripts in there demonstrably since their inception. They're only capable of it. They're putting their delusions in there. These are people personally and professionally with multiple courts, collusions with them, collusions slash S with them with the same house slash S. Since before people moved into one of them, involved with two retired police chiefs and their intimate ties, involved with child abusers, leaders, and kids years apart and more then and now. They've been putting fake things in databases. There are all kinds of drugs and medicines crimes and relative delusions too, where they have such and all kinds of other organizations, but replacing what our founders communicated. And this would have been surfaced but for all the organized crimes that are tactically distinct, but they're tactically juxtaposed. They're used non-distinctly. Originally, still we have black people's whites of eyes to discern it. American history is taught wrong by the people that of other countries and by ourselves in collusion slash S. They have our founders framed for slavery. Our founders, plural, had to counter extort the other ones. And they left detailed through James Madison why and how, not to entertain people to pretend that our founders, plural, besides James Madison. He's the only founder we know the name of specifically. He's the only founder. He's the only president slash chief we know was a founder. He's the only one who explained how and why they wanted nothing to do with slavery. Besides how George Washington told us to be honest about his extortion. It would have brought this up. You guys cannot have a legitimate debate about anything while you are self-valuing principled treatments from when you were the youngest ages. They replaced what you had capability of discerning. And or they sensed you when you communicated that. That's why and how black people's whites of eyes never surfaced in the conversation with slavery, which would have brought up the breaching method that no one wanted collusions with. And James Madison's plan, how they explain that. Instead, they have the people defending our founders that are in ways they told them not to, because they're also simultaneously replacing what they told them about the counter extortion. We have to understand that counter extortion because it comes with explaining why and how they wanted nothing to do with slavery, but why did they leave it entrenched? Because there was a breaching method entrenched. So FBI Director Robert Luskin has various natures of federal criminals and educators of Eric Jensen and people he said were intimately tied to him, involved all along Hangdog Lane and Two-Rod Highway and conjunctions to it and to that, like the state judicial branch offices in Route 3, it goes by, and the Brown Turnpike before the heart of Hartford. Increasingly, there are people involved with identity theft, fraud, slanders. But interbranch has rules, all natures of organized crimes. For how forgiveness is because we have to how good people stay evil, and collusions with some of them, a part of the whole group for the whole group. They put people to fake conversations about others, and they say everyone's evil. And these are people involved intercities with the town lines. And but that's not our police department. These are people with multiple police departments, collusion slash S. All natures of investigation. They hide things from the cell there because they were tortured. All natures of difference. So they make either people attacking the police or the police attacking the people. The difference is exploited too. But we have a quality of fact-sheeping nature that is criminal insidiousness slash hyper-criminal insidiousness, only allowed to have been appreciated at countries A through Z. See suits and ties, counters, exception as collusion slash S. So right through administration, and we know the parties. In other words, you guys have the breaching method showed you how to interpret the Civil War, how to interpret the American Revolution, how to frame our founders for being the founders, and framing them as their own framers. No one had free speech. James Madison declassified that. There was a breaching method that measured, maintained. And when you bring up any of those subjects against all women, you bring that up, now you're censored through layers of other that have only been known, and then America's founders were born. Collusion /S were only permitted. What nature of a unity could speak? What nature of independence? We are here with the World Wide Web to force this. The Connecticut networks, NBC, CBS, and Fox News, and exceptions like public television, the government access television. They have collusions with former director of the FBI, Robert Luskin, and with the Saudi attackers, facilitated for them too. There are proofs that it had to do with the child abuses of the leaders of our agencies and of our branches of government. For example, even Judge Napolitano framing our founders, other than they asked to be communicated. See, Judge Napolitano is a well-read person, even on James Madison, but they have replaced how and why our founders, plural, communicated for us not to refer to any one of them, pretended know who they were. And and to understand why and how, only James Madison is the only name that they could leave us to know the name of, because they knew they were going to replace how they were behind counter extorting, forcing everyone to counter things like slavery, but they had to leave it entrenched. We would have paid attention to this and discerned the breaching method itself. How are you? So, like in the news, they have, like, you know how they had the Cuban Missile Crisis. Now they have a crisis with Venezuela and you know, China, Russia, and all these things in the world, and Ukraine, millions of people dying. Russians are dying. They're worried about Europe being able to defend itself. Russia's worried about, you know, we have to be worried about A through Z. Can't defend themselves because A through Z have been systems tactical ulterior, from syntactical appreciation of why and how we are the human species body of individual bodies. We all have group differences generated by that which is generating two eyes, male and female, two sexes with other species bodies. So it is not, so it is showing us what is not us nor them, but it is all things anyway. But we have things like this pretended theory because of the employments of the campuses before our founders were born at countries A through Z. From off them, hyper additional collusion /S. For nature's future demonstration of it that way as collusion /S. Instead blamed on other things, others ourselves. The breaching method shows them how it uses remotely the networks with their topics with Venezuela. They have people involved with the World Trade Center attack, involved with New Britain Superior Court, in New Britain, Connecticut, involved with Newington, Connecticut, with a Dearborn Street, in conjunctions to it and to that, with various natures of federal criminals, organized crimes, people involved with Venezuela, also involved with body dumping spots, and people with my fourth grade class, increasingly collusion /S. Collusion's faked for them, and with retired mayors and their families and conjunctions to them and to that. And they'll tell you this, but when I ask right. And there are proofs that they just repeated fake things and pretend that's the best. Investigators at countries A through Z. It is recorded how they were and are used remotely, criminally, for impulse, tactically, delusion, draw. To appreciate it properly, you have to appreciate it how even James Madison, even Judge Napolitano, self-value collusion /S replacing with James Madison, the Polar founders left to classify for us. And this would have been surfaced to them, but there are proofs that the FBI, CIA, and other countries, overt criminal enterprises, private ones involved next to Fox Connecticut News. They have collusions with all sides of criminal and civil cases already, with the interbranch and foreign at the same time, with the same self-valued sequence shifts, the same self-valued relative delusions. Because you have delusions too that we have to heal. Because you came through campuses sickly distinctly, but sickly non-distinctly. Because the breaching method uses functionally how everyone self-values, how non-distinctly all campuses have quality aspects in nature that can't defend itself and afford to be, let alone to protract. Short words with convictions proper by anyone regarding what nature shows us and regarding the nature show /s, where how we, for example, how it's generating totally distinct species bodies, each made up of individual bodies and group differences like male, female, two eyes, appreciating water and its elements in nature, and appreciating gases and their elements and its elements in nature, gas and its elements, gases and their elements in nature as its own, while not by any way. That which is all things. We are distinct from other species' bodies, but while we are non-distinct from them, and while we are simultaneous with them, but per that further hyper-simultaneous. And many little kids can remember how we were prevented using correlation. This is for correlation / hypercorrelation. And everyone else will be able to admit it. In other words, we were forced, tricked, hurt, and persuaded to blame on other things, others ourselves, which nature demonstrated for us to speak about as criminally foreign influence sciences. And they have stayed. And this is also where the names of the people of the sciences is a phrase apart with the beginning of the Old Testament. Right where it says only defend right here, where the names of the people of sciences will come together in the part that comes before it. I never hear anyone bring that up. Same thing with the Quran. The Quran has a part right up front that says all that matters is if someone's going to be honest about the scientific value of the name, the identity of the hyper invisible but still discernible. That's how I translate a translation of it. It says all. It doesn't say all that matters if someone eats pork or not. All that matters if someone forces a sheet on someone's head. It says all that matters to be a good Muslim is if you're going to be honest about what you're going to name the identity of the hyper invisible but still discernible. And this is important because the ancients had been shown before the sciences became criminally foreign influence. Nature shows us. It is functional how it is itself, hyper invisible but still discernible, from how it is invisible but still discernible. And the value of a / between that. With the parts of it shows us how the parts of itself are simultaneously only increasing value equally. And they are inseparable from any individual thing. Any individual, the smallest finite part of your body, from the group parts, distinctly, non-distinctly, simultaneous / hyper simultaneously, and from the simultaneous parts. Everything has conjunction to the hyper simultaneous. But the parts of it, where how there's one part of itself, one part of a complete identity, just like it has a semi-nature relationship to your complete identity. Even a hair on your head, if you cut it off and throw it on the ground and walk away, it's still, because it is still completely your identity. Where how your identity is completely a semi-nature relationship to the identity of nature that generated all things from before us. While we are alive, and it is only increasing value here, positive further onto it as its system, or it is forced from here as value, as forced space nature transfer, as forced a special difference transfer, not as death. This is distinct from death. Everything is juxtaposed. But for example, the whole ocean is polluted and because we have been ignoring demonstration / S of how we have been systems tactical from nature with syntax appreciation, with logic and with nature. The hyper invisible but still discernible generates and generated criminal insidiousness natures of positive treatments and negative treatments, and roles with it that are hyperforeign only permitted. Because then, with those collusions passed, active, it uses that to show them that they need to, it's the reason they can't make peace and security agreements. They're showing they need to hide things. They need to self-value criminally foreign influence, criminal insidiousness natures, affection, nature, quality, aspects in nature itself as criminal insidiousness nature / hypercriminal insidiousness. I'm not a lawyer. We're going to have to define it this way because nature shows us. The lawyers, the names of the people, the sciences are still criminally foreign influenced / hypercriminally foreign influenced. They have worse than criminal incompetence regarding how they speak about the wars, because they can't even speak about the revolution the way our founders communicated for them too. And they get away when people debate this. They have reliance upon criminally foreign influenced books in the books. And for example, relative to the school book depository, had and has all we need, right with the syntax in those books, relative to how sickly, non-distinctly, the books at campuses A through Z, at states A through Z, they were and are still criminally foreign influence / hypercriminally foreign influence. Tactically, delusions are off. You don't bring up slavery without bringing up black people's whites of eyes, let alone leaving out black people's whites of eyes and how the breaching method reassigned it and pretending that's theory. Get all gathered around. Please get them off the fake conversation. We do what's right, Fox News. You guys have worse than war crimes, roles, collusions with what goes on in Venezuela since before the World Trade Center attack, with people next to your building, involved also with Connecticut's District Court, the New Haven's District Court, and the Connecticut's New Britain Superior Court and Hartford courts have been putting fake things in evidences and databases, locking the interbranch to collusion /us with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases, crime scenes, relative body dumping spots, and as people involved interstates with the World Trade Center attack. Central Connecticut State University intelligence and Trinity College intelligence families have had collusion /us with that. And that's part of their motivations and their confessions while they're pretending other with the Wethersfield police, switching names, forging names, fake conversations with me, and me fake being there and speaking with them as a kid and as an adult. Wethersfield police. And I only knew about that with the kid because I put it in the news. They faked it. And the WFSB, Channel 3 News, faked conversations with me. They increasingly have collusions with Whiting Forensics and with New Britain Superior Court since I was a kid, involved with sexual medical offenders of kids, leaders of kids' first force years apart. And victims advocates have collusions with them with overt criminal enterprise, private ones, foreign and domestic military, not and unmarked police forms, not legitimately with that. With their standing positions, roles with things, people fake. CT must break, but there is seed. In other words, fixed at the founding locations in Old Wethersfield, Webb House, now renamed the Webb Stevens Museum. A bunch of people tied to Heather Hansen. My educators recorded, confessed, demonstrated, confirmed they forced her, tricked her, persuaded her to collusions with them. She doesn't even know. Me too. They just steal our identities, like a DeMoro family. They might have a kid that came through rape. They have Judge Napolitano's involved with it, and a kid that looks just like Joe DeMoro, even if he's not related to him, Aaron Mate, as one of the ones involved with some Mendez police too. One's named DeMoro, involved with the World Trade Center attack. And they attached me a fake conversation. I never had a word of conversation with that older Mendez brother. I typed about him on Facebook, one of the Facebook pages there, because they brought it up. I said he was nice because he walked by and smiled a couple of times. The only reason I remember him from years ago. He wasn't even in my grade. These are connections between the people that I don't know at all, like a Joshua Julian, and people like these Mendez that had real quick acceptance to fake other when they were, and that they use criminally foreign influence to pretend they know me. And they can't be honest about that. And it's increasingly that it was time collusions with people with the state judicial branch offices. The Connecticut Judicial Branch offices increasingly has collusion/S with all natures of crime scenes and body dumping spots years apart, and people on 2-Rod Highway, Hangdog Lane, who have been planting evidences with them, wire crime acts and methods. Brian Bonin sought me out to record, confess, demonstrate, confirm. He has collusions with Weathersfield Police with wire crime acts and methods. DeMorro's also said that. I never hung around with them. I never saw them. You know, he saw me as a complete stranger. He also has people with the Board of Education, intercities, involved with the and the locations like Weathersfield town offices. Increasingly has collusion/S with people speaking to others and pretending real investigation or integrity is there. They have collusions with all natures of crime scenes originally and still. Increasingly, all sides of criminal and civil cases interbranch put the same self-valued sequence shifts and relative delusions. We're going to have to pay attention to these delusions. This is not an insult. I'm not even a doctor. They're doctors. There's a Leahy family with multiple courts and a Lombardo family that had people on my street come and make confessions about them. And they put me to fake conversations with themselves at Hartford Hospital. A bunch of people that work with the triage at Hartford Hospital and triages intercities like New Britain's medical too, with the part where they work together, and they have mental health care side, and some have badges, and some have gavels. They've been covering up live progressions there. They've been covering up their actual recorded value and use/S of it by the breaching method as criminal insidiousness nature /hyper criminal insidiousness nature. And this is right relative where and how. The names of the people of sciences have obligations by their syntax that they have failed. Black people, here. Please get Judge Napolitano to fix the fake news. The fake conversations that weren't at all. Channel 3 News has all kinds of identity theft, fraud, slanders against me. It's also their sources, but also the sources of WTNH with the FBI and the differences of the guilt of the intelligence active networks or the intelligence families next to them. Increasingly, they are used remotely as collusions with names on all sides of criminal and civil cases. Their lawyers, their family members, their neighbors, the crime scenes, relative names next to body dumping spots, and the interbranch families at the same time with the same self-valued sequence shifts, identity theft, fraud, slanders, and relative delusions. Black people, we must force mandated law followed properly. We're going to have that forced here. We're going to leave now.